Welcome to Illustrated Book Reviews. I'm Urban Banshee. Boy, do I have a doozy for today. Sometimes a title just jumps out and slaps you in the face. The Turkey That Ate My Father by Dean Marney. Published in 1995, and it screams written in the 90s. Let's just jump right in. Our main character is Lizzie, who is of an unknown age. We are never told how old she is or what grade she's in. I want to say she's in elementary school based on what little information we are told. She isn't old enough for her or her peers to be interested in boys yet. Her class is doing a skit for the entire school for Thanksgiving, and she has a homework assignment that is make a list of 100 things you are thankful for. I'm leaning towards thinking she's like 8 or 9, probably 3rd or 4th grade. But again, that is only my guess. Her age matters because there is a huge difference between someone who is 8 and someone who is 13. Lizzie introduces us to her weird family. Apparently her mom is going back to school again and is being high-strung about it. Why is she going back to school? Why was last time not enough? What is she studying? Let's just file those questions under screw me for asking. Apparently, her mom has canceled cable and put both TVs in storage. Her justification? We watch too much TV. It takes up too much of our time. I'm not getting enough help. We're not getting the things done we need to, and TV makes people stupid. That is the sounds of someone justifying why they did something after being called out on their BS. I did not shorten or edit the mom's excuse. Dad is upset because she didn't talk to him first before making the decision. He enjoys watching TV. The mom's response? According to Lizzie, she looked like she was going to cry and says she is sorry but school has just been too hard. Mom and Dad talk briefly and the solution is to give Lizzie more chores. They actually make a list of chores and then look expectantly at Lizzie like she should be super thrilled at this. But Lizzie's response is to ask why Booker, her little brother, doesn't have that many chores. Her parents' response is to scold her and tell her that since she is the eldest, she has to take on more responsibility. Lizzie says that isn't fair, which sets her mom off. Lip trembling, she says she doesn't have time for this and needs to do her homework. But you had time to call the cable company, cancel your cable, put your TVs in storage, and then make a list of chores for your daughter? Look, I won't argue school is hard, but methinks a little better time management might go a long way here. It would really help if I knew how old either Lizzie or Booker were. I know Booker is at least in kindergarten, but beyond that, I don't know. Is Booker 6 and Lizzie 8? Then the amount of help and maturity they expect from Lizzie is indeed not fair. Or is Booker 5 and Lizzie nearly 12? Then yeah, Lizzie should help a lot more and be nicer to her brother. I'm gonna make a decision and say Booker is 6 and Lizzie 8. If I'm wrong, then I stand by the fact that the author should have been more clear in his book. But my arguments and opinions on how Lizzie acts and how others treat her will be based on this. Lizzie is able to put off her chores for a little since she does have homework. That 100 things I'm grateful for list I mentioned earlier, which can I say is a stupid homework assignment. I'm all for being grateful, and making a list of positives in your life is a valid way to try and get ahead of negative thinking. Being consciously thankful for the things in your life is great. It's also important to let those in your life know that you appreciate them. My mom has a tradition of always making a birthday cake when it's mine or one of my siblings' birthdays. It's just something she does. And I am always thankful and let her know how much I appreciate it. But 100 things? Really? All this does is trivialize the things in life that you are truly thankful for. I enjoy having colorful socks, but they aren't on the same thankful list that I put my family on. This is literally how you get lists with things on it like socks, floors, pencils, and other everyday items. Lizzie's family is the one that hosts Thanksgiving every year. Mom is stressed because of school, so she needs even more help. The idea of not hosting is not even considered. Dad offers to cook, to Lizzie's dismay. He is a vegetarian, and according to Lizzie, he can't cook. I said, Dad, we are having turkey for Thanksgiving. Lizzie, is all he said. I wanted to tell him that wasn't an answer. I was worried. He had a funny look on his face. He was planning something and I didn't like it. He said, I've heard of people sculpting a turkey out of lentil loaf or tofu. Dad asked Lizzie what they should do. She tells him they need to call all the relatives and ask what they're bringing to Thanksgiving. He asks her why, then scolds her for worrying about things that are a waste of time. He asked her first, and she was only telling him what his wife does for Thanksgiving. Why would you want to check what people are bringing to a meal? It's called coordinating. In the end, he does end up calling and asking what people are bringing, but not until he actually asked his wife what she did last year. It drove me crazy as a kid to be asked something only to be dismissed. Don't ask me if you don't care, or won't at least pretend to listen. Also, they are such 90s parents. They are health conscious in that weird way that will give daughters body issues and an unhealthy relationship with food. No butter or salt on popcorn, and guacamole and chips are too fatty. Also, they apparently have an issue with the word something. Booker goes up to Dad with a catalog. He wants to order a giant paper turkey decoration. It's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. The catalog is from a guy named Ralph. Something about the name Ralph gives Lizzie a funny feeling and makes her brain all fuzzy. Apparently, this is just one book in a series of The Blank Ate My Blank. Dad calls up the number and Ralph says he was expecting their call. He promises the turkey is indeed free, and he says to pass along hello to Booker and Lizzie. Yeah, I'm going with a heck no. Dude knows your kids' names? I don't care if he claims there is no catch. That's just even more suspicious. Also, the fuzziness in Lizzie's head is legitimately so bad that she wanders up to her room and struggles to find her backpack. Then, can't find her math book, and she has no idea what her homework was. Currently in school, they are studying the ancient Greeks. She doesn't like that the women were the property of their fathers and husbands. She says to herself, sorry, it wouldn't have happened to me. Right. Also, that isn't specific to ancient Greece. Lizzie then spends 7 pages retelling some Greek myths. 7 out of, at that point, 26 pages. She gives her own commentary on the myths. It's very odd. It kind of feels like the author has opinions on Greek mythology and is just using Lizzie as a mouthpiece. At school, Lizzie's eating lunch with her friend Roberta, who goes by Bob. A boy named Scott throws a wadded up napkin at her. Lizzie asks if he has a problem and he just says no and just continues to stare at her. Bob suggests Scott might like her. Gross. I hate that people brush off boys harassing girls because they might like them. In music class, they are practicing a Thanksgiving skit they are going to do for the whole school. The teacher doesn't assign parts, but just lets the kids choose. He says it's more creative that way, so all the girls decide to be pilgrims and all the boys decide to be Native Americans. The boys want to practice with paint on, so they all take off their shirts and just go crazy with paint, getting it everywhere, including on their pants. The teacher says he hopes the paint comes off. I hope so too. If I was a parent, I'd be pissed if my kid came home with paint all over his clothes. One of the girls refuses to wear black, so she is going to be a pink pilgrim. The teacher just says that will be very creative. The plot of the skit is 2 pilgrims get lost in the forest on the way to their Thanksgiving feast. The Native Americans show up and lead them to the feast, and they all eat dinner and sing a song. That sounds awful. Lizzie is at least excited because they have really good prop food and thinks it's the only good bit about the whole thing. The teacher finally steps in and curbs some of the creativity after stuff just goes awry. The 2 girls who play the Lost Pilgrims were wearing high heels too big for them, and one of them starts to fall and grabs the other, pulling them both down. She is certain she broke her ankle and is sent to the nurse. Then one of the boys starts to have an allergic reaction to the paint and also goes to the nurse. Lizzie happens to make eye contact with Scott, who grabs the prop turkey and chucks it at her, yelling catch. Reflexively, Lizzie catches it, which apparently was the wrong action. The teacher is upset and doesn't want to hear her excuses and sends them both to the principal's office. Lizzie makes it very clear she doesn't like Scott. Fair. He has literally been throwing things at her unprompted. At the principal's office, we find out that this isn't the first time they have been sent there. So this is a reoccurring issue. They both get in trouble in equal amount. They are both kicked out of the skit and will have their parents called. There's a giant mural of a turkey on their way back to class. Lizzie looks at it and the feathers on it get all wavy and seem to open and close like they are doors. It stops and she is left with the feeling they aren't in their school. None of the classroom doors have windows anymore. Her and Scott walk down the hallway trying to get to their classroom, but they make a turn and it's the same. They try to go back, but it's all the same looking hallway. Most of the doors are locked, and when they get one open, it's just the hallway again. Suddenly the bell rings, and they're just standing next to the turkey mural. At home, Lizzie's mom apologizes for being cranky. She says she didn't realize how stressful school would be. Since her mom is in a good mood, Lizzie tells her about the turkey. Her mood is immediately soured, and she calls her husband. After she hangs up, she goes to Lizzie and tells her she wants the truth this time. The dad gets home, and he doesn't believe Lizzie either. She hasn't tried to spin it in a weird way. She's literally telling them what happened. Scott, unprompted, threw the prop turkey. Her dad says, I can't believe that you are completely without fault in this. It can't be all Scott's fault. Lizzie starts to cry, begging him to believe her. His response is that they will talk about it later. Not that he believes her, or even just letting her know that he still loves her no matter what. No shock that this part upset me. At this point, it seems her parents want her to be at fault somehow. That they genuinely believe Lizzie basically was asking for it. That no matter what happened, Lizzie still needs to accept fault. These parents will be flabbergasted that their daughter goes low to no contact as an adult. In the grand scheme of things, this is small and honestly not a big deal. Which is why it is such a problem how they reacted to this. How will they react when something bigger and more serious happens? If Lizzie had been shown to be a liar at times, or she was known to egg others on, then their distrust would have merit. In the end, they don't punish her. Yet. Since they are waiting for the principal to call. A call that never comes. The next morning at school, Lizzie is sent to the principal's office right away. The principal apologizes. Scott came back afterward and told her that it really wasn't Lizzie's fault. She writes a note for the teacher so Lizzie can be in the skit, and a note for her parents, so they know she isn't in trouble. Honestly, that's actually really cool of the principal. It's still dumb that Lizzie got in trouble in the first place, but doing what she can to make things right is a big deal. At lunch, Lizzie tells Bob she gets to be in the skit again. Bob thinks Lizzie should go to Scott and thank him for telling the truth, which is just wild to me. Her logic is that Scott didn't have to go back and tell the truth. Yeah, and he didn't have to throw the turkey in the first place. I don't think Scott should be punished worse for being truthful, but I don't think he should get overly praised for it either. Look, an adult in his life can tell him that they're proud of him. The victim of his, let's call it a prank, doesn't need to thank him for doing the right thing. Because let's be honest, Scott clearly wants Lizzie's attention. Her thanking him gives him what he wants, which then turns this into a reward for his prank. The skit happens and it's bad. The teacher doesn't let them use the prop food, so they have to pretend over an empty table. So Scott ruined an aspect of the skit for everyone. Lizzie and Booker get off the school bus, and her mom takes Booker to do a last-minute shopping run. Lizzie gets to stay home and help her dad get ready. She shows a note to her dad proving she isn't in trouble. She tells him, "See, you should have believed me." His response is that he did believe her, but she just has a habit of attracting trouble. Proving my point. Her parents want to be upset at her. The doorbell rings and Lizzie goes to answer it. Nobody's there, but there's a box that says, "Caution, Ralph's Giant Turkey, open at your own risk," all over it. Lizzie brings it in, and the doorbell rings again. This time it's Scott. Dad invites him in. This whole scene is odd. Scott came over to apologize. Sort of. "I'm sorry, but I don't know why I did what I did" is not a proper apology. It's more of an excuse. That's not the odd bit. Lizzie's just going, "Fine, now leave." But her dad doesn't want Scott to leave. It reads like the dad is stalling. The box starts rattling around like something is inside it alive. Dad starts moving towards the box to grab it, but it jumps 3 feet away. He moves towards it again, and it jumps again. They all decide to try and corner it. At this point, they are all chasing around this box, and it makes it to the stairs and starts up them. Halfway up the stairs, the box stops, and then starts to chase them. It hits Dad, knocking him into Lizzie and Scott. Then the box comes to a stop in the middle of the living room. Dad goes to the phone to call the police. At this moment, the box starts to open. As if in a trance, Dad puts the phone down and just watches the box unfold itself, revealing a paper turkey inside. Dad aloud says, "Gobble, gobble." The turkey's head turns at this, then it starts to grow. It grows until Lizzie and Scott are smashed up against the sliding glass door. Suddenly, Lizzie can't hear her dad anymore, and Scott is also gone. She starts to shred the paper. She tears it and tears it until suddenly there is no paper and she is in a dungeon. She's in a room with 16 doors, and Scott is also there. He tells her he has been trapped there for hours. He is certain he has been kidnapped by Lizzie, and they bicker for a while. Scott keeps going on about how Lizzie has a weird basement, and she keeps telling him this isn't her basement. The bickering is annoying, and Scott is just antagonistic throughout. Scott decides they need to go through a door to find their way out. They are able to get one of the doors open a little, and they both squeeze through only to have the door slam behind them and be stuck in pitch black. Scott decides they have to move forward. He places his hand on the wall and allows Lizzie to hang onto his shirt. But he tells her not to ruin it. He warns her to watch out for the hanging snakes. This scares Lizzie, and he thinks that's funny. Look, I'm all about using jokes to add levity to a situation, but that's not a joke. That's just mean. They reach stairs going down. At the bottom, Lizzie swears she feels something monstrous rush past them. The bickering continues. They reach a door, and when they go through it, they are back where they started. Lizzie, scared, cries out for her dad. Scott looks at her like she is weird and tells her to knock it off. He tells her that they just need to keep trying doors. Since she doesn't want to be in the pitch black again, they try to get a torch. They are up high, but eventually Scott lets her stand on his shoulders, instead of his idea of him standing on her, and she is able to get one. In between every action is more bickering. Lizzie tells Scott they must be in a labyrinth, like in the Greek myths, and there might even be a minotaur. They go through the doors twice, marking them and eliminating 4 doors total. The torch is getting low, and Lizzie says she wants to pick the next door since Scott picked all the others. Scott says no, he gets to choose, unless Lizzie wants to get another torch. Lizzie laughs and asks if that means she gets to stand on his shoulders again. For some reason, this really upsets Scott. He refuses to let it go until Lizzie apologizes to him for all the bickering and laughing at him. So she apologizes and they are friends now, I guess. At this, Lizzie notices that there is gold on their hands. She figures out that the gold came from one of the doors that has gold on its handle. Excited, Lizzie says that this must be the way out because of the gold thread in the myth of the labyrinth. Scott says that's dumb. It's just her basement. Really? After all this, he is still on about how it's just her basement, despite her telling him this entire time that it's not. Something bashes against one of the doors until it breaks it open. Lizzie and Scott are obviously panicking until it calls their name. It's her dad. Lizzie rushes up to him and hugs him, but he doesn't hug her back. He then proceeds to act weird. He tells him to follow him, and he chooses a door that isn't the gold door. The door leads to stairs going down, and Lizzie has a bad feeling about it. The dad also doesn't cast a shadow. Lizzie whispers to Scott that isn't her dad, but they follow him for a little bit. It seems like her dad changes a little. He seems to be a bit taller, have bigger ears, and his teeth seem bigger. The dad rounds a corner and Lizzie stops Scott, telling him again that isn't her dad. He asks if she is sure. They turn around and run away. The fake dad, now clearly a monster, chases them. The door is still open and they make it through, slamming it shut on the monster. Scott says, "That's not your dad?" Is that supposed to be a joke? Again, Scott, not the time. Lizzie is finally able to convince Scott to go through the door with gold on it. The next area is dark, but not pitch black, and they find stairs leading up. It gets brighter as they go up, and at a certain point, everything is paper. They tear at it for a while until the paper collapses and they are back in Lizzie's living room. Her dad is asleep on the couch. Lizzie spies the now normal-sized paper turkey in the dining room. Scott and her grab it and tear it into pieces. Her mom comes in, waking up her dad. She asks who Scott is, and Booker says it's Lizzie's boyfriend. Booker sees the ruined turkey, and Lizzie and Scott both say that it came like that. So Booker says he will make his own and rushes upstairs. Mom says she needs him to help with the groceries. Booker's response is to make Lizzie do it. Thanksgiving happens, and the book doesn't even really think it's worth talking about. We do get to find out that they had a real turkey, which is the one thing I was invested in. At school, Lizzie turns in her 100 items she is thankful for, and the last item she puts down is Scott. Her teacher asks her why, and Lizzie responds, "People aren't always what they seem at first." The end. So that was a wild ride. Not a good one, but at least it wasn't boring. Let's talk characters. First, Lizzie. She is fine as far as main characters go. A little bland, but not annoying or obnoxious. She did feel like a younger kid. Booker was there, I guess. As far as annoying little siblings go, he really isn't all that bad. I've seen much worse. It's not weird that Lizzie doesn't get along with him, but he also isn't so bad that I, as the reader, disliked him. Mom and Dad are very much 90's parents. Which is not a compliment, by the way. It's a little frustrating reading about adults that allow themselves grace, but expect better from their kids. Specifically the vibe I got with the way the mom uses her being stressed out by school, but it felt like they wanted Lizzie to be more mature than her age. They use the excuse that the mom won't be in school forever, but to a kid, time is different. If the mom is only in school for 2 years, that might not be that long to an adult, but to a kid, that is a huge chunk of their life. Now Scott. He is a trope I do not like. He is either the boy who teases the girl because he likes her, which is gross, or he is a bully that the victim needs to befriend. At no point in the book does it seem like there is a good reason for Lizzie and Scott to be friends. Scott is rude and dismissive to Lizzie the entire book. And even when Lizzie is rude back, it is always in response to Scott's attitude first. Even Scott's apology is self-serving. There is no good reason for Scott to go to Lizzie's house to apologize. Weird that he knows where she lives. He talked to the principal so she was no longer in trouble. Good, but she doesn't owe him a thanks. When she doesn't go out of her way to thank him, he goes to her house and makes sure to apologize in front of one of her parents. He also doesn't leave right away after the apology. Like, he wants more than just to let her know he is sorry. Sometimes adults will try to force friendships, especially if they don't think the kid in question has a good enough reason to not want to be friends. Maybe Scott was hoping for this. I'm most baffled by the fact that this is part of a series. The author really did find the weirdest niche and refused to let it go. But that is just my opinion. Subscribe so I can justify my masochistic inclinations toward books.